Yes, we are visiting ground zero in our quest to reclaim the teachings of Christ regarding his coming, the rapture of the church, and why the church has misled us. Why do they refuse to acknowledge that war in heaven is part of the sixth seal? Those stars falling from heaven that are likened to the worthless winter figs of a fig tree. It's war in heaven. But they won't acknowledge it. Why won't they? We're going to find out in this video. If you're watching this series out of order and you just came to this video, please stop it and go watch part one, because this part two, will not make any sense, and I'm not going to recap what we learned in part one. It's for your own good. I'm not trying to increase viewership. There are hardly any people interested in this topic. I know that, but one or two of you are looking for the truth. And if one or two of you are looking for the truth, it's worth my time to make this series. I also said in last week's video that I would be going over and explaining why is it that you see war in heaven in the 6th chapter at the 6th seal, but also at the 12th chapter. Why is that? That might be a problem for some of you, so let's answer that right now very briefly. Learn the structure of the book of Revelation. There are 3 distinct event lines inside the book of Revelation. They each have a focus or point of view, and all 3 end in a celebration in heaven. So if you're unaware of that structure, you'll come to the end of an event line as you're reading through the book, followed immediately by the beginning of another event line, and it will be jarring to you. A, whoa, what just happened moment. Everything was joyful in heaven, and now we're back to chaos. Now, that guy right there is not confused because one event line ended and another one began. No, he's hungover. But it's the only picture I could find that kind of represented. No, I can tell because no Christian has ever read the book of Revelation with their hat on backwards. Turn your hat back around, pal. But anyway, where was I? On the first event line. The first event line is comprised of seals 1 through 6, and it is the story of the times of the Gentiles. It's a 2,000-year-long event line that you and I are living in, and it ends joyfully with the Gentile nations who have put their faith in Christ and are now standing in heaven. Spoiler alert. When the 6th seal opens, that's the day you want to exit Earth. You do not want to be here after the 6th seal. The 7th seal is comprised of 2 other event lines, and they represent that phase or age that takes place after the times of the Gentiles. There's the God line that shows the testing, trials, and plagues he will be sending from heaven during that period. It runs from chapter 8 through chapter 11. After the 7th trumpet, which is the end, when we will be ready for the millennial kingdom, Revelation switches to another event line, the purging of Satan, which begins at the start of chapter 12. This line shows how God will purge Satan first from heaven and eventually from earth. That event line begins with war in heaven. Those 2 event lines, I believe, run concurrently. That's why they're together in the 7th seal. But this is what I want you to see. How does our timeline, the times of the Gentiles, interact with those other 2 event lines? Let's pull way back to fit it all in. And we see that the 6th seal, which also contains war in heaven, specifically the ending of it, will end our event line and begin the other 2, which will then run simultaneous till the end. A close-up at that inflection moment, that transition moment, would look like this. And it explains why we see war in heaven at the 6th seal and war in heaven at the beginning of chapter 12. All 3 event lines share this special moment together. The moment that ends one event line and begins the other 2. You see that altar event at the beginning of God's line? That's really the first action moment in his line. What we're seeing there is the 6th seal from a heavenly perspective. It is being shown as a ball of fire and wrath being cast down to the earth, because everything is going to change in heaven and on earth at that event. War in heaven resets everything in heaven and on earth, and it is coming soon. So now let's go to ground zero with that in mind and that out of the way. We're going to look at the coming of the Lord in the Olivet Discourse. The Olivet Discourse shows up in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and it's mainly about two enormous events: the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem in the first century and his coming, the great coming that the church will always tell you that coming is the second coming, and it belongs at the end. It belongs at the end of the timeline, just before the millennial kingdom. And we sit there in the pews and go, oh, okay. I mean, you wouldn't lie to me. So yeah, I believe that because I don't have enough knowledge to really question it. So, okay, it's the second coming. And they follow that up by saying, so it's really not for us because the rapture is well before that. The Lord, and they say this with a straight face, the Lord never spoke about the rapture of the church. That's the biggest lie you will ever hear in your life. You may hear lies as big, but you'll never hear a lie bigger than that. Let's go to that event and we will expose their deception. Deception at worst, ignorance in the best possible case. In some cases, it is ignorance. And a lot of pastors just don't know this. A lot of pastors do know this, and they never share it with us. This is the moment that we want to talk about. Then they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds with power and great glory. We see that in Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21. And it's followed generally by, and then he will send, speaking of himself, then he will send his angels out to gather his elect with a great sound of a trumpet. He'll send his angels out to gather the elect. That's the rapture of the church. But the church will always tell you whether they are post-trib or pre-trib. No, this is at the very end. This is at the very end. Okay. Take a look at then. That begins that sentence. Then. That Greek word means at that time. Immediately. No delay. Then. At that time. So that means that there's an event before this great event. And the before event will trigger this event. It's the line before this line that we really want to focus on, and it's in every single version. That event is, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds with power and great glory. The powers of the heavens will be shaken. In Matthew and Mark, you'll see the word and before it because it's part of a compound sentence. Let's look at the previous portion of that sentence. The stars will be falling from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Those stars falling to earth from heaven are the same stars falling at the sixth seal. It's the same event. The Lord is telling us war in heaven is the trigger point of his coming. War in heaven will take place then, immediately at that time, at the conclusion of war in heaven, when Satan and his angels are being thrown out, then they will see the Son of Man coming with power and great glory. Do you see what's going on? At the sixth seal, we see stars falling from heaven, and we are told they're like worthless winter figs. So it's telling us there's something more to these stars than it just being meteor shower. And the same is happening at the Olivet Discourse. Stars are falling from heaven because the powers of the heavens will be shaken. War in heaven has taken place. That's why the stars are falling. Luke doesn't mention stars falling, but he says it in a different way. He's saying the same thing. People fainting with fear and with foreboding of what is coming on the world For, in other words, because the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds with power and great glory. Showing us the same thing, but he's showing us the terror down here on earth. Oh, that's a little different than the normal rapture day you hear from the church. This is why at the sixth seal we see everyone, from the great men and women to the lowest, running and hiding, scared, witless, because it's that kind of day. Church has stolen this from us. And you see what it means? It means that the Lord is saying war in heaven, the conclusion, immediately precedes his coming on the clouds for his church. That means this event takes place before the beast even comes out of the sea. The beast is not coming out of the sea until Satan and his angels are cast down. That's practically the very first thing Satan does, is bring forth the beast. This event is taking place before that. They want you to believe it takes place way after the beast rising out of the sea, at the very end. But that's a lie. That's deception. That's misinformation at best, a lie at worst. That's not when it takes place. It takes place before the beast comes out of the sea, at the fullness of the Gentiles coming in. The reason this is so important is because the Lord gives instructions about that day. Those instructions have been picked up, moved to the end, and you're told, don't even worry about it. It's not for you. And so you're not following his instructions. That event comes with signs that he talks about. Church is not paying attention to the signs because they say, it's not for us. This event belongs at the end. It's not during the church age. Oh, yes, it is. Oh, yes, it is. It is going to end what is commonly called the church age, the times of the Gentiles. It comes with instructions, and you should read those instructions between now and the next video. This is Monday the 4th. The election day is tomorrow. If the grid is still up afterwards, okay, and I'm still up, and more importantly, the Lord is willing, on Thursday, I'm going to show you the kind of day the rapture really takes place on. But you need to go to Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21. Go to the point where he talks about, then they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds with power and great glory. Afterwards, read what he says about that event. Notice his passion, that you must be ready for that event. This is supposed to be part of what it is to be a Christian. The church has stolen that from us. If you want it back, take it back. And join me back here on Thursday, because I'll show you the real day the rapture takes place on. Not what I think. We're going to use the words of the Lord Jesus Christ. Thanks for watching.